Okay, and if I dip, I'm looking at another screen, okay? So we got plenty time so far. So if you have any questions, Okay, we are live streaming. Welcome everybody to the Sustainability Leadership Series. This is our first one, and I'm Shan Young. I'm the CEO of the Center for Sustainable Action. And yeah, I'm not going to spend much time on me tonight because we have an amazing guest here. So I'm just going to introduce myself and then allow Dr. James to jump in there.
Hello, my name is Dr. Llewellyn James. I'm a director of the Center for Sustainable Action. Here in the United Kingdom, we are a cooperative that is dedicated to ensuring that sustainability is put at the heart of small businesses within our community. Next, I'd like to pass on the baton to my esteemed colleague and chairperson, Olga Jidin, to introduce herself.
Thank you very much. Hi, my name is Olga Gaydana, and I am non-executive director and chairperson of this amazing organization. And we are here to bring extra value to those people who are passionate about the same thing, what we are believing in. So I'll pass on back on to Shan so she can play the important video, and then we'll crack on with this event. Thank you.
I felt so isolated as a small business owner, although I knew there were millions like me. I just kept on hearing on the news, big subsidies going to corporations, and only unimpactful funds for small businesses that never quite reached me. Like a lightning bolt, it just hit me. What if we all cooperated, sharing knowledge and resources, jointly owning the solution, collectively attracting funding to distribute to our members? Allowing small businesses to innovate, building equity and sustainability, a new cooperative way of doing business for people, planet, and profit. Join your cooperative small business solution today, the Center for Sustainable Action, because cooperation makes business sustainable.
So there we go, guys. And now I have the pleasure of handing you over to Dr. James to introduce our amazing guest tonight.
Hello, once again, it's my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Dr. Bruno Cignacco. He's an international business consultant, speaker, lecturer, best-selling author. For over 20 years, he has advised and trained hundreds of companies on international trade activities and social marketing. He's also a university lecturer. And amongst his accolades, he's a senior fellow of the Higher Education Academy of the United Kingdom. And more importantly, he's the author of a new book entitled The Art of Compassionate Business, Main Principles to the Human-Oriented Enterprise. So I'm handing over the proceedings this afternoon to Dr. Cignacco, and I look forward to his lecture. Over to you, Bruno.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your invite. I feel very honored to be here. I really appreciate your invite. I think that this topic is very important for everyone here. I hopefully then there will be some question and answer about this topic. I will try to be precise and also straightforward. I will try to back this topic with the latest research, and also will try to provide with a very clear set of examples that could be of use for all the attendees. Thank you very much again. And let me set up the slides. Let me put the camera off a minute and I will set up the slides. Okay. Okay. Can you see the slides? Can you see the slides?
Yes, we can, Bruno.
Okay, good. Let me move this here. Good. So the talk is entitled "How Companies can become more compassionate. And we will see a very important set of examples of companies that are both human-oriented and also profitable. Companies that are very successful from the economic perspective, companies that have big market share, high sales, high profit, but at the same time they care for different stakeholders, individuals and groups with interest in this organization. For example, customers, employees, suppliers, community members, business partners. And this is the most important objective of this talk is about talking about the importance of love. We will talk about love and business. That is not a topic that you see very commonly in business articles, in business publications, or for example, in books about business. However, there is a new generation of books that start talking about compassion and love and how these affect business activities. We will explain what we mean by love. We're not talking about the sentimental aspect of love that, for example, we feel for our family, friends, or a partner, but we will talk about a much broader connotation of love, a more humanistic one that can apply to business activities and non-business ones. And we will provide with of examples of organizations that adopt a loving attitude. So we have to get accustomed to using the word love in business. Love is not only to be used in close circles like family, relatives, friends, but also there is a broader approach on love that we will develop later. So we have a very interesting quote here from two scientists. One of these scientists is very well known, Maturana, and these scientists observed there is something peculiar about human beings. We are loving animals. I know that we kill each other and we do all these horrible things, but if you look at any story of corporate transformation, where everything begins to go well, innovation appears and people are happy to be there, you will see that this is a story of love. So in this interesting quote, we can see that love is the constituting factor of any successful business activity. Then we will explain why and how this works in practice and what are the scientific principles behind this. So, but let's talk about macro aspects first before I start getting into micro aspect. We can say that many will say, Bruno, the world is not about love. There is a lack of love. You see wars, you see crime, you see corruption, you see child exploitation, you see human trafficking. These are not signs of a world full of love. But in the business environment, there is also lack of love. You see companies competing in an unethical way with one another. You see companies trying to poach talents from other companies that try to steal customers from others. So you see many examples that of companies that are not acting in a very ethical way, in a very loving. But also in the workplace, you also see many signs of lack of love. For example, you see what we call the dark side of politics. One-upmanship, people trying to outpace one another in the workplace. Instead of cooperating, they try to compete. You see a lot of fear in the workplace too. You see gossiping, slandering. You see turf wars. You see people that are taking the merit of others. You see favoritism. These are not examples of love. So you see many examples of lack of love. Now, what do we mean by love? We haven't defined love yet. And then we will focus much more on a specific aspect of love, which is compassion. Montagu, these are three scientists, observe that love is an intrinsically social, it's a social need. It's as important as food. So people cannot survive without love. But also Hamilton and other scientists observe that people are naturally hardwired to behave in a loving manner with others, not only in the close circles, but in any situation. Griffith and other scientists observe that human beings have an instinctive orientation to behave in an unconditional, selfless, and all-serving, all-loving, cooperative moral way. So this means that we are naturally hardwired to behave in a loving manner. So why we see so many signs in the world, in the business environment, and also in the workplace of lack of love. Now, what is love? We're not talking about a song here, but we're talking about what is the meaning of love. What do we mean by love when applied to business environment or when applied to workplace. In my book, The Art of Compassionate Business, I mentioned many times the word love, and I devoted the full chapter to explain this, but here we will see at least the basics. So love, from this perspective, we're talking about not the sentimental aspect of love. For example, when you meet a friend or a family member and you say that you love them, here we are talking about the sentimental aspect of love that only applies to close circles, doesn't apply to business activities. But the connotation, the definition of love that we are using here is much broader. It's a humanistic aspect of love that many psychologists like Abraham Maslow, Erich Fromm, Carl Rogers, the humanistic psychologists already use many times in their writings. Love is related to different qualities such as connection, closeness, affinity, sympathy, care, support, generosity, gratitude, compassion, and other beautiful qualities. And all these qualities that are all positive qualities, noble qualities, can be applied to any type of relationship. And then we will see what are the advantages of applying these qualities in the business, to the business environment. So a loving attitude is the foundation of fruitful relationship, both business one and non-business one. Now, when I give some talks all over the world, people ask me, what is the fundamental factor for success of a business? What is the fundamental success factor of any business? Is it technology? Is it that they have a lot of funds? Is it that they have for example, a very important product or a service? Well, I would say the most important common factor of any successful company is the human being. It's not technology, it's not funds, it's not any other factor. It's the human being, and more specifically, the relationship that the company builds with different stakeholders. Stakeholder we will define in a very simple way, any individual or group or organization with interest in other organization. We have internal stakeholders, such as employee and management, and we have external stakeholders outside the company, for example, customers, supplier, community members, and for example, business partners, government, and so on. So business is about relationships, but it's about not any type of relationship, fruitful relationship with different stakeholders, long-term relationship, mutually profitable relationship with stakeholders. From the viewpoint of this talk, authentic love, the love that we mentioned before, connection, closeness, sympathy, care, support, the broader approach of love is volitional, means that depends on the will, one's attitude. It's not emotional. This means that the person decides to love others, to treat others with care, with sympathy, with support, with compassion. So it's not the emotional aspect of love. So, and you have there, this is the sentimental aspect of love, and then you have a broader connotation of love that we will use all over this talk, and we will give some example of companies that adopt a loving attitude in business environments. So, but also we see some assumptions in the workplace and in the business environment that are assumptions that are against this loving attitude. You see zero-sum game. Many believe that in a marketplace, companies should always win at the expense of others. This is what we call zero-sum game. One company wins and the other will lose. So there is not a situation there where many companies can win-win agreements, or they can cooperate together. The concept of competitors implies that you are competing like in a game, and there will be one winner and one loser. So you don't see in the business book or in the business publication so much the word cooperator. Why? Because it's not well used. You use only the word competition or competitors. And also organizations are seen as threats. If you see an organization as threat, what you will do? You will try to defend yourself. You cannot act in a loving way because you will try to defend from this potential threatening factor. Some companies say that customers are difficult to please, difficult to satisfy, And in some cases, they consider customers as a number in their database, only as a means to obtain profit, instead of defining these customers as the end themselves. So they consider this customer in a very instrumental way, only as a means to obtain profit. And also you see a lot of lack of love in the workplace. We mentioned this before, and you see commoditized people. Commoditized people, what do we mean? In the workplace, people in many cases are considered as replaceable cogs in a machinery. If someone is not working well, well, the manager or the boss will replace this piece, this employee that is not working well, for another employee, another piece that may work well. It's like a machinery, the parts get broken. So this is not a compassionate approach in the workplace. It's not a loving approach in the workplace, but you see many times. And you see also widespread series of conflicts. You see many companies that get in conflict with customers, with suppliers, with employees. Conflicts are part of human nature. This is okay, but how you solve this conflict? Many companies try to solve this conflict in a very unfriendly way. They set up legal actions against, for example, suppliers, or for example, employees or customers. They prepare contracts with a fine print that will make difficult for some obligation to be delivered and to be met. So these are also other signs that there is a bit of a scarce love or lack of love in the workplace and in the business environment. Also, you see many terms that are used in the business world come from military disciplines. For example, strategy, tactics, flanks, all these terms do not imply a loving attitude, an attitude of support, imply a warmongering attitude. This means we are there in the marketplace to defeat others, to try to outpace others. There is not connotation of cooperation or alliances or partnership in these terms. It's always using these military terms. And also you see the majority of these irrelevant terms that are used in the business environments are quantitative. What do I mean? This is a very serious problem because there is a famous thinker. Some attribute this quote to Einstein, but was not Einstein who said this, that this famous thinker observed, not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted counts. What do I mean by this? In business, you have quantitative aspects of business, which are the one that can be measured. Profit can be measured, sale can be measured, market share can be measured, quality level can be measured. These are quantitative aspects of business. But these are not the only one that are important. So these are related to economic objectives: profit, market share, quality level, productivity. However, you have what we call qualitative aspect of business. For example, camaraderie, loyalty, commitment, morale, compassion, and others are qualitative. And both qualitative aspect of business and quantitative are important. Even qualitative aspect by nature cannot be measured, are necessary to develop a strong relationship with stakeholders, with different organizations and individuals with interest in our companies. When I give talks to entrepreneurs, they tell me, lab doesn't have anything, Bruno, to do with business activity. What are you talking about? Like they treat me like I'm a bit crazy. And they tell me, we are here to make profits. We are here to offer good products, services, make profit over time, grow, and this is our objective. We are not talking about love. What is this about? And they say that they're only for key performance indicator, profitability, productivity, this quantitative aspect, what we mentioned before. They say that love is obviously wishing others the best, but this also is only applied, this entrepreneur said that it's only applied to close circles. However, we saw that love, in the way that we are talking about here, is a wider approach of love, which implies care, support, compassion, generosity, gratitude. And this can apply to any type of relationship, business one and non-business one. It's not a limited view on love. And also we mentioned that in business, this term appear to be a bit strange, because the companies focus on key performance indicator. They try to achieve this indicator in the best way, and they do not think about lab. Now, let's think about this clearly, because key performance indicators are important. I want to mention this very clearly and in a very serious way. I'm not dismissing this key performance indicator, but where does any key performance indicator come from? This key performance indicator comes from the interaction between a company and its stakeholders. In other words, company without its stakeholders cannot achieve any single key performance indicator. To put this simply, company without employees, without customer, without supplier, without the support from the community, cannot achieve profit, cannot achieve sales, cannot get more productive. Why? Because companies can only succeed with the support of customers, support of employees, support of suppliers. So this means that these key performance indicators, according to my research and my conclusion, and also saw this once and again with cases of companies, these key performance indicators are the natural result of the interaction between a company and its stakeholder. So when a company build strong relationship with this stakeholder, these key performance indicators tend to be achieved naturally. So because they're achieved in an effortless way, because everyone that is this company related to this stakeholder are on the company side. They're supporting the company to achieve these key performance indicators. But also you see some organizations that act in the opposite way as the way that we're suggesting here, a loving attitude. And many will think that the opposite of love is hatred, but from the perspective of my book, I consider the opposite of love is fear. And many schools of thought also consider this way. Companies that are not adopting a loving attitude tend to have a fearful attitude. This means a fear-based attitude. They tend to have a fear-based workplace where everyone is not trusting one another, everyone is competing with one another, and also they are fearful of other organizations. So for the reason they call them competitors. They don't see this organization as potential cooperators or potential partners or potential member of an alliance that companies can complement with one another. So now we mentioned before the broad concept of love. Let's bear this in mind: empathy, compassion, affection, support, care. Now, what are the benefits of adopting this broad attitude of love toward others, to others? Well, first off, adopting a loving attitude sounds simple, but in some cases it might be difficult to apply in practice. It's being affectionate with others and understanding that others have needs that are legitimate and should be met. When you engage in relationship with others, you should be meeting these needs that in many cases they're not only economic, but we will see later on there are different type of needs, emotional, mental, and so on. So it also implies that avoiding any unloving attitude like gossiping, criticizing, guilt tripping, and others. And there is a researcher that observed, Baumeister, a very famous scientist, that observed that people in business shouldn't only adopt a loving attitude toward others, but should avoid any type of unloving behavior. For example, gossiping, criticizing, frowning at others. And Goldman observed also that the positive interaction with others should exceed the negative interaction with others. We have some research there, the second paragraph. Barsadi and O'Neill have a paper, a very famous research paper called What Love Have to Do with It. They interview many companies, and they according to this research, this is famous research, they observe that when a company adopts a loving attitude in the workplace, what is a loving attitude in the workplace? Everyone is supporting one another, everyone is working in a cooperative way, everyone is caring for one another, people are not fearful of expressing their views. This is a loving workplace. When there is a loving workplace, this tends to bring about very tangible economic benefits. For example, increase customer satisfaction. Why? Because employees that are at ease, that are happy, that feel supported, they tend to serve customer better. Instead, when employees feel fearful, when the employees feel like despondent, they're depressed, they feel unsupported and acknowledged, they tend to serve customer in a very ineffective way because they cannot be of value for customer. But also when there is a loving workplace, there tend to be higher employee satisfaction too, higher customer satisfaction, and also lower absenteeism. People want to go to work. They feel that they make sense, they can contribute to this workplace, and also lower turnover. This means that people won't leave this company for others, but they will try to stay in that company because they feel at ease. They feel a famous state that we call psychological safety. They feel at ease. They feel comfortable. They feel that they can contribute to others in a meaningful way. And also you have decreased stress, so less burnout, which bring about higher profit, higher market share, and higher sales. So a loving workplace is not only that people will care for one another, what is very important, and the relationship will be stronger, which is very important too, but also bring about tangible economic effects once and again. Because remember, the core factor of business is the human being, and relationships are the most important building block of any business activity. So, but also when people adopt a loving attitude toward others, people tend to be much more emotionally intelligent. We saw a couple of days ago some example of people, very well-known people that were not behaving in the most emotionally intelligent way, and probably this was in all the news, I don't want to mention the example, but caring for others, supporting others, we have to understand that this well researched by business specialists, by business researchers, and it's part of what Daniel Goleman coined as emotional intelligence, which implies recognizing our own emotion, recognizing other people's emotion, expressing our emotion in the best way, allowing others to also express their emotion in the best way, and building long-term and mutually profitable relationship with others. And why is so important treating others in a loving way in business? Because when you treat others in a loving way, you are acknowledging others, but also you are bringing about reciprocity. Imagine an employee that is treated in a loving way. The boss is recognizing the employee contribution, is recognizing in economic way, giving employee the bonus, and also in a very kind way, for example, writing a thank you note. This employee will tend to reciprocate, to act alike, to act in a loving way, will tend to work more, work overtime, contribute much more enthusiastically. Instead, when a person is treated, an employee is treated in an unloving way, for example, they are, nagged, or they are micromanaged, or they are exploited, this employee might tend to work by the book, or might look for other job opportunities. So this means that treating others with care, support, bring about care, support from their side, on their side. So they try to act in a reciprocal way, in a similar way. Also, when we treat others in a loving way, we are recognizing interconnectedness. We mentioned before that companies cannot succeed without customers, cannot succeed without employees, cannot succeed without a community members, suppliers. So we're treating everyone in a respectful, supportive, and cooperative way because we want to acknowledge their contribution. They are contributing to the company's success. We cannot succeed without them. There is a famous thinker that observed, no man is an island. And I want to say, no company is an island. Companies cannot succeed without stakeholders. So this means that it's important to put the stakeholder first, because this stakeholder, this relationship will be the one that bring about economic success for a company. And also you have the concept of emotional contagion, which implies you treat others in a loving way, in a respectful way, and you infect others with positive emotion. This also was researched by some researchers like Daniel Goleman, and they tend to experience similar emotions as the one that you are experiencing. So when you have positive emotion and you treat others expressing this positive emotion, care, support, and so on, people tend to get infected with this positive emotion. Instead, when you go to the workplace, you are the boss, and you get angry and you start shouting at people, people will be infected by this negative emotion, and productivity will tend to go down. And also, treating others in a loving way increase trust and cooperation. And let's go through some practical aspect of love. And then we will see some specific examples. In business, my long experience in business and in life, not so long, it told me once and again that business relationship and non-business relationship is about mutual satisfaction of needs. So supposing that you have two members of a relationship and one of the parties have their needs satisfied and the other party has their needs not satisfied, this relationship, business relationship or non-business one, will tend to break up. Why? Because we need mutual satisfaction of needs. This means every party in the relationship should have needs satisfied. And we're not talking about only economic needs. There are different types of needs that we want to explore in detail, but you have economic needs. For example, an employee wants a good salary. Emotional needs, an employee wants to feel acknowledged, appreciated. Mental needs, employee want to feel challenged, to be exploring creative ideas, to develop new projects, and so on. So you have different types of needs. So many companies tend to focus only on the economic needs. They believe that paying a good salary to the employees is enough. And then they don't look for employee recognition or bringing employees challenges or allowing an employee to rotate at work. So we need mutual satisfaction of needs, and no party in the relationship should get their needs satisfied at the expense of others. So this means that there shouldn't be what we call win-lose agreements. A company is getting their needs satisfied and customers are not getting their needs satisfied, or a company is getting their needs satisfied and employees are feeling exploited. Well, in this case, there is a win-lose, company winning and customer losing. For example, if they are deceived by the company, or company winning and employees losing when they don't feel that they're recognized or they're exploited. So, but also we are social beings. We need to develop affinity bonds with others. This applies also to business. For the reason you see most of the projects in business are collective projects. You need a contribution from many people. A company and any organization is a collective, a group of people with different specialization, different skill, talent that are working for a common mission and vision. So the idea is that a company should nurture this need for affinity, this means connecting to others on a continuous basis by fostering collective team projects instead of individual projects whenever possible. And also, love in business is about harmonizing relationship with others. We saw that the importance of solving conflict in a very friendly way. This means avoiding damaging the relationship. I see many cases once and again, and advise hundreds of companies where you try to solve the conflict. For example, supposing that the company and the customer have a conflict and the customer feels deceived and the company said that they deliver a good product, a high quality product, and they didn't deceive customers. There is a conflictive situation. Many companies try to solve the problem, the conflict, at the expense of the relationship. They try to get the problem solved by damaging the relationship. And we have to preserve the relationship. We have to solve the conflict in the most friendly way, avoiding lawsuits, avoiding legal action whenever possible, and look for more friendly way of solving conflict. For example, negotiation, mediation, conciliation, and others. And whenever possible, preventing conflict and looking always for win-win agreements where both parties have their needs met. But also, love is about recognizing and validating others. What do I mean here? People want to feel that they count, that people want to feel that they have been taken care of. For example, if I am an employee and I have been working 2 hours additionally every day, supposing that I'm working 8 hours a day and I have been working for 2 months, 2 additional hours, 10 hours a day, to contribute to a very important project that has a very tight deadline. What I expect, at least as an employee, is recognition for my contribution. And recognition doesn't have to be necessarily economic recognition. Could be a thank you note, or it could be an event organized by the company to publicly acknowledge this employee contribution. This means that we made this employee feel that they were important because they were, and we made this employee feel valuable because we human beings need to feel valuable. We are valuable, but we need to be reminded of this by others. So this is quite relevant. And also, love is about exploring commonality with others. How many times you see a lot of conflict that is about differences? Differences about roles or differences about way of thinking. But what are our commonalities? We are all human beings in any business activity, regardless of the role. You might have manager, you might have the CEO, you might have the subordinate. They're all human beings. They all have fears. They have a common humanity. They have expectation. They have past experiences that are negative. You have positive past experiences. They have hopes. They have aspirations. And this is life, where we have a common shared humanity. It's important to focus more, and this is also applied to when the company has employees from other cultural backgrounds. This applies to any type of business activity. Focusing more, many psychologists, social psychologists observe that focusing more on commonalities bring about stronger relationship in business and outside business. And also praising others. I don't see this very frequently. Companies praising others, being thankful, being acknowledging other contribution in a very over way. They focus much more on trying to meet the objective, set by deadlines. In some cases, try to make employees multitask, what is quite challenging. And also, a very important aspect of love is emotionally acknowledging the emotional side of others. You don't talk about emotion in the workplace. You don't talk about emotion in business. Some people will say, how do you feel or how are you? But this is a formality. People really do not want to know how people feel, because business is about rational aspect, meeting objectives, setting plans, setting budget, setting a strategy. Emotion might feel disturbing the planning process. And here we have to understand that we are all emotional beings. This means that we are beings with emotions that we cannot hide. We might suppress, we might repress, but in practice, these emotions are still there. And if you suppress or repress, they are more likely to come out like an outburst. Instead, when you acknowledge this emotion and you acknowledge other people's emotion and you express this emotion in an intelligent way, in a wise way, relationships tend to be much more, much stronger, much more, much brighter. So in practice, this is about emotional intelligence. How we can acknowledge, for example, if you are the manager and you see the employee that is a bit despondent or depressed, the manager can have a talk to this employee and can talk about, not about business issues. They can talk to explore if there is any issue that is affecting this employee, for example, at home, or you have any problem with a relative or a family member and so on. This is looking for a much more humane, much more human connection with this employee, not talking about only about business topics. Because remember, before being in business, we are above all human beings. And also, love is about showing compassion for others. Even the book is called The Art of Compassionate Business. Compassion, I will say that is a sub-product of love. What is compassion? Compassion is, in very simple terms, is about avoiding any judgment regarding others, but also try to imagine when someone faces challenges, and we all face challenges in life and in business. When someone faces challenges, try to understand how they think. Very important, what we call cognitive empathy, and also try to understand how they feel, what we call emotional empathy. So this means that how they think and how they feel is important to connect to them without judging, in a not judgmental way, in a not condemnatory way. And if possible, and if the request is, try to support them. I give an example of how a company acts in a compassionate way. I saw this recently. A company was to be, the relationship is between a company and its company supplier. And this supplier is providing this company with raw material. This supplier was to transport this raw material, to deliver this raw material to this company on a certain date. And this supplier delivered the raw material late, bringing about a lot of problems for this company. The company, instead of criticizing or condemning this supplier, or try to break up the relationship with the supplier, the manager of this company got in contact with the manager of the supplying company, and they have a conversation, and they start talking about very important things. what are your challenges? Some questions that were in this conversation were, what are your challenges with the delivery? I want to know, did you have any problem? Why you deliver this late? And how can this be avoided in the future? Can we help you somehow for you to deliver on time? So the company was telling the supplier. So this means that it's a much more humane approach. We understand that companies in some cases can face challenges, and instead of condemning and try to break up the relationship, we try to understand and help them overcome these challenges, and also if possible to avoid these challenges in the future. So this means that I'm preserving the relationship. And in this example that I gave, not only the supplier could overcome these challenges later on, but the relationship with this company got stronger over time. And this relationship has been for many years. So compassion is supporting each other. And remember, in business, without support, you cannot succeed because it's interdependent. You are depending on customer, you are depending on supplier, you are depending on employees. So it will be nice to support employees, support customer, supplier, because they're more likely to support our company when we need. Reciprocity principle that we mentioned before. And companies also should adopt a positive attitude toward others. We call the Pygmalion or Pygmalion effect. This was studied by business psychologists and observe when you have positive assumption about others. So for example, a boss believe that the employee will be very effective, will be productive, will be creative. This boss start treating this employee in a positive way. Start treating as if this employee were productive, creative, effective. So this bring about a like self-fulfilling prophecy. This employee is more likely to behave in a creative, productive, and effective way. Instead, when you treat others and have negative assumption, you might say, oh, this employee is lazy, is unproductive, and so on. You start treating others in that way, as if they were lazy and productive, and how they will act, how they will respond in a similar way. So having positive attitude and assumption about others is a very important point. Respecting others, well, we cannot dwell on this too much, but how many times you see disrespect? How many times you see companies that are treating employees like children? They're micromanaging, they say they cannot move a finger without asking for the boss authorization. The boss cannot delegate even the simplest task. This is lack of respect, but you see also other example of lack of respect when a company try to disrespect customer, offering products that are not suitable for them, or try to manipulate customer, or try to lie to customer. This is very common also in business, and these are examples of disrespectfulness. And also, love is also acting with integrity with others. This means acting in an honest, transparent way. This means we are there to help others, to serve others, and to add value to others. So we're not only focusing on ourselves, because this is a self-centered attitude, and this is not a loving attitude. We're focusing on the well-being of everyone involved, on the benefit of everyone involved. And this means that it's not only about integrity, but it's an integrative attitude. We include others in our decisions. So any decision that we make in business will be a win-win decision. So we won't try to make decisions where we will win as a company and other stakeholders will lose. I give an example of a company acting without integrity. Supposing that the company is offering two products to a customer, A and B, and the product A costs, the final price is 10 pounds, and the second product, B, is 20 pounds, double the price. So if the company acts with integrity, the company will offer both products and will be okay if the customer buy the cheapest product, because they know that this is the most suitable product for them. Instead, when the company acts without integrity, the company will try to force customers to buy the most expensive product, because they know that by selling the most expensive product, they are more likely to get higher profits. And for example, the seller is likely to get a higher commission. So acting with integrity implies acting without manipulating any stakeholder. This means that we want the well-being of every stakeholder involved in this situation. And also, love is expressing creativity. I have two full chapters in the book, The Art of Compassionate Business, on creativity, Why is connected to creativity? Because when you adopt a positive attitude, a caring attitude, a supportive attitude toward others, your mind tends to expand. Why? Because you experience positive emotion. There is a lot of research between that corroborate the fact that there is a very clear link between positive emotion, for example, caring for others, support, being empathetic, and so on, and creativity. When you are positive, when you have a positive outlook, a positive attitude toward others, you are not fearful. You cannot be positive and fearful. You cannot be loving and fearful. You tend to be at ease, and your mind, your cognitive skills, your way of thinking tend to be enhanced. You are not focusing on something that is threatening, but on the contrary, you are focusing on connecting to others. So love brings about more creativity, and this was corroborated by different scientists. And love is about being more generous and grateful. Generous, when I talk about this, some companies tell me, I cannot be generous. I don't have any money. I don't have funds. How can I be generous? I cannot give anything away. Companies should be generous in different ways, not only economically speaking. Company can, for example, a manager can be generous with employee, not only giving a bonus, a bonus, for example, a higher salary, but they can be generous when the employee has a problem, giving an ear, or giving some support, or giving some technical advice, or coaching, giving coaching to this employee, coaching sessions, or giving thank you for their contribution, or giving some practical information for them to work on. So this means that you can give positive things that could be tangible, for example, bonus, or intangible, giving an ear, giving thanks, giving advice, information, and other aspects. When you are generous, you bring about a positive cycle. You are generous and you prompt others to be generous too. Why? Because when you're generous, you are giving things to others, tangible or intangible, without expecting anything in return. And people feel indebted and tend to give back. An example that I always give is, I like to drink some cappuccino once in a while, not so much now. I'm half Italian. And I went to 2 coffee shops here in London. The first coffee shop, they brought the cappuccino late, 15 minutes late and cold. I didn't like the customer service. Then I went to the competitors place, and they very well-known brand, and they went there and asked exactly the same cappuccino, similar price. The waiter brought the cappuccino to the table 1 minute later, very, very quick. And they brought the cappuccino and they put this on the table, and I said, thank you very much. This was quick. Oh, thank you. We're here to serve you. Thank you. I like the attitude. And then this lady forgot on the table a tray with biscuit. I said, sorry, you forgot. I didn't order this biscuit. So I only ordered the cappuccino. I said, no, that is no mistake. This is for you. This is a gift for you to enjoy the cappuccino. So look at these 2 different approaches. The first approach, or the first company, cappuccino late, no apologies, nothing, bad customer service. They didn't even meet the basic customer needs. I didn't go back to this company. Second company, not only they brought on time, good attitude, treating the customer well, and also giving a gift that for them is pennies, but for me was very interesting because were nice biscuits that can be enjoyed with cappuccino. Which company do you think that I'm going back? The second one. And which company will I recommend? I will be generous with the second company, going back and recommending this company to friends, family, and also relatives. So the idea is that being generous bring about generosity. Generosity engenders generosity, bring about more generosity. So treat a company with a loving attitude. When there is a loving attitude in business, a company is prone to act as follows. Company does not attempt to deceive customers or manipulate them. They will try to continually care for customers. Companies are not there to sell anything to customers. When I say this in talks, people look at me like, say, what are you saying, Bruno? We are there to sell product. You are not there to sell any product. You are there to serve customers. It's not the same. You are there to add value to customers through products and services. But the objective is not selling the product. The objective is to make their life better through your products and services. And this is quite a different approach, because serving customers, serving doesn't mean servitude. We're talking about wishing the best for them, knowing their needs and try to satisfy their needs, but not only satisfying their needs, exceeding their needs. This means that we try to act like this coffee shop, the second coffee shop. They saw me that I asked a cappuccino and they brought biscuits because they probably intuit that I will enjoy this biscuit with the cappuccino. So they didn't bring any biscuit. They brought biscuits that were very suitable for this cappuccino. So chocolate biscuit. So the idea is that very important, serving customer instead of selling, a completely different attitude. When you are serving customer, you are focused on customer, not on the company. You look the best for them. And you can say, but we want to make profit. But where do profit come from? Come from customer. If you don't serve them well, there will be other companies that will serve them well. So try to focus on offering the highest value possible, because they are a very important factor of success for your company. And don't treat them as a number in your database. They're human beings with needs, and unique needs that need to be satisfied in a legitimate way, in a clear way. A company doesn't consider organizations as enemies, other organizations, but as potential cooperators or partners in an alliance. Companies do not de-skill. How many times you see companies that are trying to bore employees to death with repetitive, monotonous activities? This is not satisfying mental needs of this employee. An employee will get so bored, even if they're paid well, will look for other job that is more meaningful. So try to skill or also allow employees to rotate in different jobs in this organization, or allow this employee to contribute to projects where they can enhance their skill, their unique talents. And also, company doesn't have higher profit only as the sole objective. They have also social goals. Then we will see some example of companies that have social goals. They're contributing to the community in a meaningful way. They're contributing to the environment also in a meaningful way. And companies don't treat employees as replaceable cogs, as we mentioned before, and try to communicate in a hearty way with different stakeholders, and also try to solve the conflict in a peaceful way, and consider the interest of everyone involved in a conflicted situation. Now, we're wrapping up some aspect of this talk. Hopefully I won't exceed the time. We will see now some example, specific example that try to integrate all the aspects that we've seen up to now of companies, real companies, not theoretical ones, with a loving attitude. So you might have heard of this company. A company like UPS is a courier company. Why do we say that it's a compassionate company? It's a company that is adopting a compassionate or a loving attitude toward stakeholders. First off, they're adopting a compassionate attitude toward a very important and generally, in some cases, unacknowledged stakeholders that we call the environment, or some will include with the community, but some will say that the environment itself is a very important stakeholder, even they might not have voice. But they're reducing carbon dioxide emission. So for example, they are slowing down their planes to reduce carbon dioxide emission, but also they're compassionate with the environment and with the communities, but also they're helping part-time employees, a very important external stakeholder, obtain funds for their college education courses. So they mean that they're helping employees to grow intellectually, to develop themselves as human beings, to be more knowledgeable and being proud of themselves, so they help them economically. So do they have to do by law? No, they don't have to do by law, but they want to care for this employee, and they try to do this in the most meaningful way. Company like Google, well, we don't have to talk too much about this company, but what we have to say about this company that is developing a lot of philanthropic activities that support communities. For example, volunteering, providing community with grants, supporting innovating non-profit organizations, using the expert knowledge of the people working there to support community, and also offering community free technical products. But also Google employees are offered a lot of services that are uncommon in other organizations. Free savory food. They have at markets a restaurant that are free for employees. They have a series of on-site services such as hairdresser, doctor, physiotherapist, legal advice. Most of them are free. But you see Google is a company that is thriving not only because they are very good at what they do, managing information, but because they are generous. Google offer a lot of product free. They offer Google Maps, they offer Google Books, Google Scholar, Google Translate. You are not charged for these products. The company is always trying to add value. In some cases, obviously, when you advertise, obviously you will be charged. But many of the products offered by Google are free. And which is the most important searching engine? Google. People prefer Google because of also the effectiveness, but also all these products free that are connected to the main searching engine. Dell, the computing company, they have a program called Legacy of Good Plan that is committed to reducing carbon dioxide emission. They're compassionate with the environment, reducing wastage of resources during production. They're producing computers, and also using recyclable packaging and source from sustainable materials. So all these, they are adopting a loving attitude toward the environment. But also this organization is helping communities through the contribution of millions of hours of service and technology and expertise. This company is also adopting a much more inclusive and inspiring attitude in the workplace, allowing employees to work, for example, flexible hours. That during the pandemic, this was very important. And some employees that have family and have some childcare challenges with childcare is very important for them to take this into consideration. Southwest, another company that is an airline, local, and is loving with customer. Why? Because they offer a transparent price of the tickets, so they don't manipulate customer. Most low-cost airlines, you start paying without the baggage, you start paying, let's say, £50. And then when you add the baggage and you add all the taxes, you end up paying 5 times more. This is not transparent. This company show you from the onset, how much you will pay in a transparent way without deceptive strategies. And you see, this is a very inspirational company. Honestly, they produce a beverage, drink products, and what they do is they're loving with the customers because they offer products that are organic, healthy, they don't use artificial ingredients, they use only natural products, so they care for customer health. They are adopting a loving attitude toward customers, but also they adopt a loving attitude toward suppliers. Why? Because they adopt what we call in business a fair trade scheme. This means that they have a fair trade certification, they pay fair compensation to suppliers. This means that they don't try to take advantage of suppliers, and they try to pay fair compensation and support local suppliers from communities in need. For example, less developed countries. Tom's, we're wrapping up. Tom's is a well-known company which sells shoes, but has been donating millions of shoes to communities. In the past, they have a program called 1 for 1. Every pair of shoes that was bought from Tom's, 1 pair of shoes was donated to communities in need. For example, countries in Latin America or Africa or South Asia. So countries that have a lot of needs, and they were supporting children for them to have shoes to go to school. Conclusion. I know this a lot, but Stephen Covey, a business guru that I consider almost a genius, observed that there is a constant state of interdependence will link all people. I like his idea. In most of his book, he mentioned this idea, and we can apply this very easily to business. Business is about interdependence. We're not independent. No company is independent. We are interdependent, means that we need the support from customer, supplier, employee, members. So this means that the only way to succeed in business is nurturing this relationship with different stakeholders, fostering this relationship, and allowing all parties in the relationship to have their needs met. And also, this is connected to a very important model that is used by many companies, what we call the triple bottom line approach. The concept of compassionate business and loving attitude in business is about not only economic objective, what we see at the bottom of this graph, profit, not only looking for profit which include also other economic objectives like market share, productivity, and sales, but also caring for people. People implies customers, suppliers, community members, employees, business partner, caring for the needs and looking for in agreement, looking for mutually profitable relationship, and also caring for the planet. So we call the threefold line model or triple P model. So profit, people, and planet. I want to wrap up this with a quote from Einstein, Albert Einstein, Nobel Prize. A human being is part of the whole called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiencing himself, his thoughts and feelings as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical illusion of his consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of the nature in its beauty. So this famous scientist also was a very important individual that fostered compassion, and including in this definition, in this quote, include the definition, the wider definition of love that we mentioned in this talk. Not only to apply love to your close circle, but try to care for every person that you meet in business, every person that you interact in business, recognizing this interdependence. These are some references that I use in this talk. And also, well, this was much more well developed in my book, The Art of Compassionate Business. And this is my website, one of my websites. And thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that, Dr. Cignacco. I'm going to reach out to all our guests on LinkedIn Live. And I know some of you have taken some time away from your work, and some of you that are based in the United Kingdom are up quite late looking at this particular event, and we thank you for your patience. That being said, Dr. Cignacco, I have two questions of my own before I open it out to the floor. One question. You talk about, a caring organization, right, as part of your research, and you consider care to be, or caring to be a quality of love. Is there a difference, a subtle difference between caring organizations and compassionate organizations, or are they one and the same?
For the purpose of this talk, I will say that caring organization and compassionate organization are alike. What is important is how you can know if an organization is compassionate. We can call compassionate, caring, loving organization. A very simple way to test this. If the organization is caring, will think not only about itself, but will think about different stakeholders. When the company is caring or compassionate or loving, as you want to call this organization, the company will look for every single decision that they make and will check this decision. Is this decision bringing about win-win situation? If not, they won't make the decision, even when the decision is profitable. So a very simple way to understand this situation is when you observe companies that have a strong, long-lasting relationship with different stakeholders, not transaction with this stakeholder, but means relationship that can go beyond specific transaction and can be long-lasting, can be robust. So a question that a company can ask themselves to discover if they are caring is, are we focusing only on ourselves? Are we trying to get only? Are we trying to get more market share, more sales, more profit? Nothing wrong with this. Or are we trying to get and give? Remember that generosity brings about generosity. And also, we're trying to give more value to customers. We try to give recognition to employees. We try to give a good deal to suppliers where the supplier and our company both win. So there should be a balance between getting, obtaining, what most companies do, and giving. There should be a balance. It's like inhaling and exhaling. You cannot inhale only, inhale without exhaling. There should be a balance. And many companies, what I observe, when they're not caring, and I like your question, they tend to focus only on quantitative aspect of business. What are the profit? What are the market share? And maybe they get this indicator, quantitative indicator, by all means, exploiting employees, deceiving customers. This is not a caring company. If company focus only on quantitative aspect of business, which are very important, but dismiss the qualitative aspect of business, what cannot be measured, but are very tangible, well, this company is more prone to be uncaring, non-compassionate. So we can call in different ways, and many authors call in different ways. Some will call healing organization or caring organization or compassionate organization, loving organization. The term won't be the most important thing here, but we have two main categories: companies that are only focused on the bottom line, and companies that are focusing on a much broader approach. They care for people, they care for the environment, besides, in addition to the bottom line. I'm not saying that the bottom line is not important, but as we observe, you cannot get without the bottom line without customer. If you are deceiving all customers, sooner or later you will get no customer, and you won't get any profit. So customers go before profit because they are the one providing with profit. But also, if you exploit employees, well, you might be replacing continually employees. Their turnover rate will be very high, and this will be very costly for your company because you have to train them again, motivate them, and so on. So, and this company might have a bad image because you will say, you know what, I heard that this company is exploiting employees. I don't want even to apply for this job because you know what, I don't want to be exploited. So companies should care for every single stakeholder because they have legitimate needs, and this stakeholder will be contributing to the company's needs or objectives. So a very good question. Are we focused as a company on ourselves only, our economic objective, or are we focusing on others too? We're other oriented, we're more likely to be compassionate, caring. Do we look for win-win agreements? Yes. Okay. Well, this is a good sign that we are. Do we look for long-term relationship, or do we look only for transaction? Transaction approach tend to be win-lose. Relationship, long-lasting relationship, you can only sustain a relationship over time if they're win-win. Very good question. Thank you very much.
My second question, and thanks for that very eloquent response, Dr. Cignacco, is emphasis, should love be the fourth element of sustainability, right? And the reason why I'm saying that is that our 2/3 of UK businesses have no sustainability plans. Okay. Conversely, is fear preventing business from implementing sustainability?
Okay, sustainability, yes. Love is a common factor of any company bottom line. And triple bottom line approach, if you take the last part of the triple bottom line approach, planet, be sustainable and being caring for with the environment, this implies that you adopt a loving attitude because you go beyond the economic objectives. Because the economic objectives are only for the shareholders. The economic objectives are important for the company shareholders, the company owners. But all the other objectives, social objectives and environmental objectives, you go beyond this limited set of stakeholders that are shareholders, and you look on the community, look at the community, you look at, in the case of sustainability, you look at the community and the environment. Companies that are not willing to take a step towards sustainability are more prone to behave in an unloving way. Why? Because they focus only on profit, market share, and so on. And to be sustainable, in some cases, you have to invest in, for example, more greener process, and in the short term, you might have higher costs. But then in the medium or long term, you might have more efficiency because you're using more renewable sources of energy, or more efficient sources of energy, you're being more efficient with your production, less waste, and so on. But companies, because they're so focused on the single bottom line approach, profit, market share, they cannot broaden their view to include people, for example, individual stakeholder like a customer, supplier, and they cannot even include the environment. That would be much more elevated. So the idea is that, and they think very short term. They will say, we're here to get resources from the environment. We're not here to make this environment sustainable. So this means getting some resources, but also giving a positive contribution to the environment means reducing carbon dioxide emission, using green sources of energy, and so on. So very limited approach. Hopefully, what I'm hopeful that probably in 30 years, hopefully I will be alive, we won't be talking about this, and all company will be sustainable. And this will be a topic like a conversation with a coffee with a friend. But in practice, you see that most of the company are very limited with their view, their mindset, business mindset. This means that they focus only on the tangible economic result. And what we can expect with this, from this company that to broaden their view? Well, this talk, I think that are important. The activity developed by your center are very important, but we have to understand that it's a change of mindset, a change of mentality. Instead of focusing on our own objectives, economic objectives, the owner's objectives, we care also for others. We care for the environment. This is connected to the concept of corporate social responsibility, which includes sustainability. It implies that we are others oriented. We have a stakeholder approach, not the shareholder approach. This means that we don't focus only on the owners. The owners are only one of the stakeholders. And this makes a lot of sense. Sound counterintuitive, but when we start focusing on other stakeholders, companies start to thrive naturally. When we support the community and we support the environment, company has a better brand image. Why? Because company is not only looking, people will see that this company is not only looking for profit. They try to care for the environment, they use recyclable material, and you have a much more increasing number of customers that are conscious to understand and say, okay, this company is contributing, I will try to make my little contribution buying product from this company. And also these companies are sustainable, also tend to bring about a better workplace to work. Why? Because people have a meaningful mission, not only focusing on profit, but also a mission that which include social impact and environmental impact. A mission that can bring about positive effect, not only for this generation, but for future generation. But this is, sorry about being so long with the answer, but I feel that this is important. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Yes, you have, Bruno, with much passion and dare I say love
Thank
for
you.
the subject.
But
Yeah.
love is using business. It's not only in this talk. You see, when customers say, I love this company, they're really talking about love. When an employee says, I love working for this company, they really mean this. And they're meaning in the way that we use in this talk. Thank you very much.
Yes, we are going to wrap up our Q&A on the LinkedIn Live event. And I'd like to thank those of you that remain this late in the UK, and those of you that, let's say in our other client areas like India, as well as United States, that are probably looking into this particular feed for being part of this exciting sustainability leadership series. I'm also like to thank my CEO, Shan Young, and our chairperson, the ever effervescent Miss Olga Jadane, for being part of this particular event. As we end, we are going to transition now to our VIP Q&A time. There's a link, I believe, that was shared by our CEO, Shan Young, for those of you who are interested in asking Dr. Cignacco any pertinent questions relating to his talk. And more importantly, his book is available on Amazon and Routledge. It's The Art of Compassionate Business. I believe it's something that you should invest in for your personal career and your development. I will also be purchasing the book, and hopefully I get it signed by Bruno.
Thank you very much.
At some point in time. Okay, so Bruno, Dr. Cignacco, thank you once again.
Thank you for your invite. I feel very honored. Thank you.
For your input into this particular leadership series and for kicking it off on our behalf. Okay, so until next month, I'll see you then. Have a nice night for those in the UK.